What's up, everybody? It's the Alex Leak and Friends NFL podcast, back for another week. I'm your host, Alex Leak. We got Bret back on the show as always. Bret, good to have you on.
Yeah, glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
And we've got a special guest back on for a second time, Rob Stats Guerrera. Thanks for coming on the show again, Stats.
Oh, Alex, Bret, thanks, man. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, it's always an honor to have you on the show. For those of you that don't know, Stats is a 49ers analyst and host of the Gold Standard podcast for NinersNation.com. He's formerly from ESPN Radio and Pro Football Talk with Mike Florio. So let's get into the stats. I mean, first of all, that was an awesome interview you did with Trey Lance. Great job on that. That had to be a lot of fun for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was awesome to talk to him, 2 days before he got drafted. Just seemed like a really cool guy, like he unfazed by everything, not really like, the moment was never too big for him doing these interviews and getting drafted. And even in his first mini camp, he just seems like he's ready to handle everything.
Yeah, that's one thing I heard a lot about him is that he killed every interview he did. People were blown away. Now, what did you think? So when you did that interview, did you have any idea that Trey Lance would end up being a Niner? And, were you surprised when he was actually selected? Like, there was a lot of buzz about Mac Jones at that time.
I was 99% sure it wasn't going to be Mac Jones. I didn't want to say 100% because it's still the NFL and crazier stuff has happened. But I was really sure that Kyle did not move from 12 to 3 to go get Mac Jones. You move from 12 to 3 because you don't like Mac Jones. That's why you move up. He could have had Mac at 12. So I was pretty sure it was going to be either Fields or Lance. I thought that Lance was a possibility. I'm going to be honest with you, though. I really thought that it was going to be Justin Fields. But I tried to go into the interview thinking like, hey, potentially this guy could end up in San Francisco. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened.
That's very cool. Yeah, I agreed. I had that criticism too. I was like, if you traded all the way up to 3, why are you taking Mac Jones when he could fall there pretty easily to 12? Go ahead, Bret. You got a question?
Yeah. So how, were you happy, with the draft pick? Like, what do you think it's a good fit? It's a pretty quarterback friendly system there. So, how do you feel as far as Lance going to the 49ers?
So my whole thing since the beginning has been, let's have a little faith in Kyle and John Lynch to pick the right guy. They clearly know better than me what they can make work. If they think that Lance is the guy, great. If they think that Fields was the guy, great. Even like if it was Mac Jones, I would have thought they gave up way too much to get him, but I still wanted to put my trust in them to pick the right guy. Now that it's Lance, I'm relieved that it's not Mac Jones, but I also, like with Lance, you're going to get a guy who can make plays off script, can make plays outside of the structure of the offense. And you're also going to get a guy who I think really helps the 49ers in 2 key areas. One is short yardage situations because he's 6'4" and he runs faster than almost all the quarterbacks in the NFL last year. He actually ran faster in 2019 than Lamar Jackson ran last year, just to give you an idea of how fast this guy is. That was according to a GPS tracker that he was wearing for one of the games. So, he can move a little bit. And the Niners didn't have anybody in short yardage. They were using Kyle Juszczyk in short yardage last year. That's how desperate they got. And the other area I think where Lance can help right away is the red zone, because Kyle's offenses have traditionally struggled in the red zone. There's not as much room for him to spread everybody out. Well, you get Lance back there now. He's a huge threat to just take off and run. So I think that just the threat of that will help Kyle, and then him actually being able to do it. If they call a pass play, for example, and it doesn't work, or Lance screws up the read, whatever the case may be, he can just take off and run. And if he has to plow over somebody to get in the end zone, he can do it.
Absolutely. And just thinking about how much success the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan have had with the zone runs and Raheem Mostert, you add Trey Lance threat and his mobility and size back there with that, that's going to be very difficult to defend.
And that's something that Kyle talked about, is basically making the defense have to play 11 on 11 and not being able to just totally disregard a quarterback scramble, which is what they've been able to do with Jimmy Garoppolo, who seemed like he had a little bit of scrambling ability, but then tore his ACL in 2018. And since then has basically become a statue back there. And I think Kyle's really looking forward to having that extra element of the offense because it's just another thing, like you said, for the defense to have to worry about.
Awesome. And then what do you think of the rest of the draft? I mean, Aaron Banks in the second round, Trey Sermon in the third round, which I think is a great value pick, and then Ambry Thomas in the third round as well.
So it was a little kind of unexpected from Kyle because the thinking going in was like, well, he likes kind of smaller, quicker offensive linemen that can run those outside stretch plays and outside zone plays and get to the next level quickly. But the two linemen they drafted, not that they're not agile, because I think that they are, but they're also 320, 330 pounds and are going to be able to provide the power run blocks up the middle that I think Kyle wants to kind of incorporate more into the offense. And I think that's also why you saw the Trey Sermon pick. Trey Sermon is not a burner by any stretch of the imagination, but he knows how to read blocks. He can run through people. So I think what that's telling you is the 49ers want to add that dimension to their offense. They want to be able to run power up the middle, whether it's with Sermon or, like we mentioned earlier, whether it's with Trey Lance. Like if he's going to move, I think that's going to be where you're going to see him do it, is on power runs, maybe in short yardage, like I mentioned. So they kind of went a different direction in the draft that I think most people thought they were going to go. And I like it, to me, because it shows that Kyle is not one-dimensional, kind of stuck in his ways, right? He's willing to evolve. He's willing to incorporate new things into the offense, which is good because that's going to help keep teams off balance when they have to prepare for the 49ers.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a solid take there. Go ahead, Brett.
We spoke about the quarterback situation in the draft. Now, the quarterback situation in San Francisco, what's your take on that as far as who starts week one, how far Jimmy makes it? You know, how do they use or how do they do this right?
I think the only right thing to do is to put Trey Lance in there from snap one. I've talked about it a lot already, and the more I talk about it, the more clear it becomes to me. Like, think about when you were learning how to drive a car. Did you learn how to drive a car by watching everybody else drive a car? No, you learn how to drive a car by getting behind the wheel and stepping on the gas. And yes, you're going to dent a few doors here and there. That's what happens. That's part of the learning process. You ding the side mirror a little bit. Like, that's why they fold in towards the car. Everybody knows that's going to happen. That's the only way you can do it with Trey Lance. He only played one football game last year because of COVID-19. How can you sit this guy for a year and then give him the reins in 2022 when he's played one football game at North Dakota State in 2 years? It makes no sense. All of the things that he needs to work on can be fixed by actually getting reps and playing the game on the field. So to me, you have to start him right away. Now, whether the Niners do that or not, I don't know. I think that they might be inclined to start the year with Jimmy G, but I think it's a mistake. And I'm hoping that they find a reason to give Lance the job from snap one.
Okay. That'd be awesome. I'd love to see that. And the thing that I saw at North Dakota State, like watching Trey Lance, is there was a lot of good there. There was a lot. People talk about his inexperience. He still looks pretty good for a lot of inexperience. I mean, that 2019 season at North Dakota State was very impressive.
Yeah, 2019, by the way, when he was 19 years old. He's the first player in the history of the NFL that was born in 2000. And like, he's a teenager doing that in 2019. He played one game last year. Get this guy in from snap one, and then all of a sudden it goes from being like a knock on him, like, oh, he's really young, to all of a sudden you get him out there, he looks good, and what are they going to be saying? He looks really good, and guess what? He's only 21 years old. He's got a lot of room to grow. So to me, put him on the field.
That'll be awesome. I look forward to seeing how John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan navigate that and how much public pressure there will be to get Trey Lance out there sooner than later. Same thing with my Bears that I'm worried about is the public pressure.
Well, so I think with the Bears is a little different, right? Because you've got Andy Dalton there and Nick Foles. Honestly, like, I think everybody wants to see Justin Fields from go. Yeah. Matt Nagy's job and Ryan Pace's job is hanging on by a thread If they put Justin Fields out there and he looks good, all of a sudden their jobs get a lot more secure. So I feel like that's a different situation from San Francisco, where a lot of the fan base, and I'm telling you, a lot of the fan base is so loyal to Jimmy Garoppolo. I have no idea why, but they look at it and say, when this guy is healthy, we went to a Super Bowl, so you got to put him out there, which is just ignoring all the other stuff he's done in his time with the 49ers. But there's a large contingent of people that support him. So it's a lot different than the Chicago situation, where I feel like everybody's pretty united in getting Justin Fields behind center week 1. And by the way, how much fun would that week 8 game be? Niners, Bears, Justin Fields against Trey Lance. Like, that's the matchup everybody wants to see, right? We don't want to see Jimmy Garoppolo and Andy Dalton out there. Come on.
You're preaching, Stats. I agree 100%. Now, after a tough 2020, going 6-10, finishing 4th in the division, what are your expectations for this season? I mean, I know a lot depends on who's starting at quarterback, but if they're healthy, I mean, this team on paper looks as good as, I know they're in a tough division, but there's a lot of talent there.
That's what I think the big question is with the 49ers. It's not as much who starts at quarterback. To me, it's how many guys stay healthy. Because even if it is split between Garoppolo and Lance, as long as the 49ers get average quarterback play for 16 games, I think they'll be just fine because of what you mentioned. There's so much talent on the roster, and they were able to bring back so many of the guys that were on the Super Bowl team in 2019. So as long as they don't get massively struck by injuries like they did last year, don't forget, they're playing a last place schedule. The extra game that got added was against Cincinnati, which is fantastic. If you're going to play against an AFC team, yes, give me Cincinnati. Like, everything is kind of lining up for the 49ers to have a pretty big bounce back year. I know it's dumb to do this in May, but everybody does it, and I'm no different. The schedule came out and I went through it. I could see the Niners going 11-6, honestly. I think that they're going to be in that ballpark. They're going to be squarely competing for a playoff spot in the NFC. Again, this is all assuming that they're not massively injured, but you got to think that it's at least going to be better than last year. And if it is, the team should be a lot better.
Absolutely. I like it. Go ahead, Bret.
Well, okay, so what do you think about the Bengals and the Dolphins going wide receiver in the draft and like passing up on Sewell? The Lions, he fell to the Lions there, and do you think that was a steal? Did they miss, or was that the right move?
Here's the problem with first round offensive linemen. Everybody wants a sexy first round pick. Everybody wants to have like the quarterback or the wide receiver, the shiny new toy for the offense in the first round. The problem is those guys bust a lot. Offensive linemen make every other part of your team better. It's not flashy in the draft, but then when you actually start playing the games that count in the regular season, that's where you see the impact. For Cincinnati especially, to pass on Sewell, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because I know they took some linemen later in the draft, but your season, I mean, everybody was holding their breath when Joe Burrow went down last year, and he went down because they can't protect him. So to pass on Penei Sewell on offensive lineman when the hit rate on offensive linemen in the first round is 1,000,000 times higher than it is on wide receivers does not make any sense to me. And especially because Cincinnati already has pretty good wide receivers. Like, they don't have, this big deficiency at that position. So it's like, yeah, you made yourself better, presumably, but not as good as you would be if you had taken the offensive line, who would then make your running backs better and your wide receivers better and Burrow better and your tight ends better. Like, it just seemed a mistake to me. I think they were too focused on the sizzle and not focused enough on the steak, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think it would be much more beneficial to take the tackle early, and then you can get pretty good wide receiver talent later in the second and third rounds. So I was shocked by that too. And, Jamar Chase might be a home run pick. I mean, he looks like it on paper, but what does Jamar Chase impact if Joe Burrow goes down again? So
that's a good point too. It's a very good point. It's contingent on your being able to keep your quarterback healthy for 17 games. I saw a tweet from Ian Rappaport. I thought this was pretty good. 7 wide receivers drafted in the first round in the last decade. 7 wide receivers drafted in the first round made 30 combined Pro Bowls. That's pretty good. 11 wide receivers drafted in the second round made a combined 20 Pro Bowls. So like you just said, you can find the receiving talent later on, and to pass on the offensive line on Penei Sewell, it just shows to me that the process in Cincinnati is not where it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason they've kind of been struggling for a little bit. And perfect example is a guy like Chase Claypool last year, who's an absolute stud now. Going back to my Bears a little bit, they traded up and took Justin Fields 11th, and I loved it because I didn't want the Bears to trade up aggressively to go to 4 or to go to 8, and I felt like they waited for Fields to fall just outside the top 10, and then they made the move and went and got their guy. Were you surprised to see not only Fields but Mac Jones as well fall out of the top 10? And do you think it's a good move for the Bears?
I wasn't surprised to see Mac Jones fall because to me, I felt like you can get a Mac Jones in the draft pretty much every year. I didn't think he was, so great that you had to, oh my gosh, mortgage the future to go get him. Not that he's going to be bad, because I don't think he will be, but I don't think he's going to be like amazing. I think a lot of times when we look at draft picks, we're like, well, he's either going to be a Hall of Famer or he's going to be a bust. It's like, no. Sometimes you just get a guy who's pretty good sometimes. Like sometimes you get like a Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's cool, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not a guy you trade up to get. For the Bears, I think it couldn't have worked out any better. You had to give up a little, but you could potentially get the best quarterback in the draft. I mean, if you looked at all the college numbers coming out and you threw everything into the mix, it was maybe Trevor Lawrence 1 and Justin Fields 2. Like the dude put up monster numbers at a big time program against big time competition. He completed something like 77 or 74% of his passes, some crazy number. And it wasn't like Ohio State was running a lot of screen passes. Like he was throwing the ball deep down the field. So to see an accuracy or a completion percentage that high when he's throwing passes that far down the field consistently, and oh, by the way, he runs like a 4.33 or 4.5, some ridiculously fast 40 time. Like you can't have asked for anything better if you were a Bears fan. That was your dream scenario of what actually played out. And yeah, they had to give up a little to get him. But if he's as good as you think he's going to be, nobody's going to care.
Yeah, I agree. A home run pick, and it's got Bears fans hype and excited. When you look at your Niners and you look at that division, the NFC West, what are your expectations? The Rams have gotten better. They have a quarterback now in Matthew Stafford, potential contending team. The Cardinals seem to be getting better. The Seahawks are going to be dangerous. They kept Russell Wilson. That should be a very fun to watch division in 2021.
Yeah, the NFC West is just going to be like a battle royal all year long. I actually am the most worried about the Rams because you mentioned Matthew Stafford. Like, for some reason, people are not giving the Rams as much credit for getting Matthew Stafford. Like, Sean McVay was winning 10 games a year with Jared Goff as his quarterback. Yeah. Now he gets Matt Stafford, a guy that was the number 1 overall pick, still has an absolute rocket for an arm. Nobody disputes that Matthew Stafford is better than Jared Goff. And yet people still seem to be sleeping on the Rams. Like if McVay's winning 10 games a year with a trash bag at quarterback, now he's improving at that spot and you think he's going to be worse? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Plus you pair him with the defense that was number 1 in the league last year. I'm more worried about the Rams than the Seahawks in the division as a 49ers fan.
Yeah, and that atmosphere, their home field advantage of the new, stadium with fans back. I'm looking forward to watching games there in LA and Vegas. The atmosphere, how excited are you for that, to get fans back and see the old atmospheres and the loud stadiums and these brand new stadiums too?
Yeah, we got a little bit of taste of that at the draft, right? Like the draft this year felt way more normal than obviously it did in 2020. Yes. And it was just like kind of nice. It was just like, oh yeah, this is how it used to be. And now to go into the games next year with fans in the stands where we don't have that ridiculous fake piped in crowd noise that would like randomly get louder or quieter throughout the game for no reason. Like, yes, please sign me up for that. I want to see the the Death Star in Vegas, like you mentioned. Honestly, I love the 40 when the Niners are really good. Levi's Stadium was actually, I was surprised at how much of like a home field advantage I thought the 49ers got when fans were there. So obviously I'm looking forward to that again. And it's just nice to be able to kind of do this stuff again. And it's going to be just, we've all had a incredibly tough year, and it's just going to be like a little bit of an exhale as we get back into the full swing of things.
Absolutely. I can't wait. I'm so hyped for the year to come. I know it's a ways away yet, but I'll be hyped all summer. And well, we appreciate it, Stats. Thanks so much for taking some time to come on. It's a great time as always, and you're the man.
Thank you. Shameless self-plug here. If you want to hear more, check out Niners Nation Podcast Network. It's available anywhere you get your podcasts. Alex, Bret, anytime you need me, I'm here for you.
Absolutely. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much, man. And thanks for coming on. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And have a great week, guys. Peace out.